us around the world. We always get fantastic range of people tuning into these webinars. So it's my pleasure to welcome you. Why don't you pop into chat, say hi, tell us where you're joining from today. Autumnal, not so far here in Zaragoza, still super, super warm. So I've actually got a fan on here just outside my little broadcast room here in my co-working space. So fantastic to welcome you. So pop into the chat where you're joining from. And yeah, we have a fantastic panel. We were just doing the pre-brief in the room beforehand in the green room, and we were talking through some of the topics for the webinar today. So mentorship, so important. And one of my favorite topics, given that I have had my career over almost 25 years. So having been mentored, I'm also a mentor now myself to my team and to lots of other individuals that I'm happy to support. So mentorship is a fantastic topic. You can also scan here the QR code on screen if you'd like to find out more from our sponsors. SafetyWing are fabulous and sponsor these webinars, bringing experts from all over the world together to discuss such important topics for the new world of work, for how we can all do remote work better, remote, hybrid, etc. So I think we're coming up on, I've got about 130 in the room. So just to remind anyone who's joining in, today's topic, remote mentorship 101 and unlocking your team's potential. You can see some of the brands and the companies represented on the bottom there. So this is number 37 of these webinars. And I think I've moderated almost 20 of them, so it's fantastic. So topic today is remote mentorship. So take a moment maybe to have a little think about what you understand about mentorship, what your own personal experience of it is, and just take that moment or two and it'll help you come up with maybe some questions, some observations as we move through. Welcome to submit any questions. Start from now if you want into Q&A as well, so that we can make sure that Kurt in the back room has gathered them and we can make sure that we cover them as we move through the content. So welcome, and that's the topic for today. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn top voice, joined by another top voice today, Sasha Connor, two of us, so fantastic to have Sasha here as well. LinkedIn top voice, two together, so should be double trouble. My name is Rowena Hennigan, Row Remote, and you can find me and connect with me on LinkedIn. Subscribe to my newsletter on LinkedIn, which has got almost 16,000 subscribers. So lovely to meet you all. I'm delighted that you're joining today. And we'll keep moving through. Thanking our sponsors again, thanking SafetyWing, who are designing the global benefits for the remote workforce. Don't you just love their graphics? SafetyWing's little graphics that they have are fantastic for all the team members. I really love it, so kudos to their graphic design. And here is their product roadmap. SafetyWing are building a global social safety net, so looking at all the things for us to go borderless, both as individuals and companies, including the massive growth of digital nomadism. SafetyWing and Plumia have been major supporters of that. So you can see the roadmap there. You can see remote health providing benefits for remote teams. So, and you can see some of the other plans on the roadmap. So they really are building that. So it's a lovely graphic that illustrates that as well. And you've got your QR code if you'd like to find out more. They have plans to become their own independent insurance carrier, which is really exciting as well. So moving on, we also always at the start of these give a little agenda at the start of these webinars, these panel discussions. So there's going to be a poll in a minute just to set us going to get a feel for the audience out there, the 150 people that have tuned in live, and there'll be many more people tuning in on playback. We'll do the poll, we'll move into the panel discussion, and then there will be, of course, time for Q&A. But I do encourage you, because we're gathering the questions as we go, and we may naturally cover them off, to submit any questions you have straight away as soon as you have them, and pop them into Q&A, and Kurt will record them. And I will do my very best to get to them. If you can, keep it to the topic for today, but we may have a chance to open up wider. So ask those questions and we'll get them logged. So let's launch the poll, Kurt, and get a feel for the makeup of today's audience. So is your organization borderless? What does that mean? Are you planning, or do you already plan to operate outside your local country? And you've got your questions there. Do you already have operations in maybe one or more countries? Maybe you're looking at doing, expanding. Maybe you're from a region or a country that's quite large already, and being remote locally is important to you. And so that might be a no. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes. We've got almost 50% that have voted. So hit one of those buttons and we'll get a little bit of a feel for what your plans are and get a feel for the audience that have tuned in today. And we're up at about, nearly at 60, I think. And I'd say we'll give it another, we usually let it run till around for about just over a minute. And so we're almost at 70, so maybe a couple more votes. We'll cut it in the next sort of 5-10 seconds. Kurt, you choose. Lovely. So let's see what that pushes through. Let's see what those results say. So we're going to see the poll results on screen, hopefully in a second. There we go. Right, interesting. So we've got 40%. We normally don't get that high, actually. We normally get around 20 to 30% who are not interested in going borderless. Fair enough. As I said, there's many reasons for that. But of course, if you're leading remote teams and building a remote first organization, you hopefully are very interested in the topic of mentorship. And then we've got a shift then in the middle for 2 to sort of 5 countries that are around 26%, and another 26% that are in 6 or more countries. So pretty international, pretty borderless. So fantastic to see that. So thank you for answering those questions. So let's move on and get going, and we will invite the panel to pop on their oh, actually we have them all here. So let me go through them before I bring them on stage, on the virtual stage. There we go. We've got Charlotte from Plume. She's a people lifecycle manager. I know she's tuning in from the UK today. Juliana Rabi, currently based for a while anyways. Juliana is a digital nomad and she's over in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. We've got Sasha Connor tuning in from the east coast of the States, and Danny, who I believe, and I'm sure he'll confirm, is over an island near Cyprus or Cyprus itself, somewhere in that part of the world. So you can see all their LinkedIn information there and their names. You can Google them, you can look them up on LinkedIn. Fantastic, diverse panel. What I was saying beforehand, I think between us all, we've maybe got over 100 years of experience in remote team leadership. So hopefully the topic of mentorship will be something that's close to our hearts. So let's bring them all on stage and meet our fantastic panel today. Welcome, welcome. Hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. Lots of waves. So thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for being in the green room. Thank you for being on time. Thank you for fighting a little bit with the tech, but that's natural because sometimes we always have tech issues no matter how well we prepare. So welcome. So I'm going to go around the virtual room. I'm going to start with Juliana, then go to Charlotte, then to Danny, then to Sasha. So can you introduce yourself as quickly as possible, because we want to get into the meat on the bone today of the topic. So Juliana, a little bit of an introduction for us.
Yeah, so very happy to be here. My name is Juliana Rabi. I am a career coach for remote jobs. So I help professionals to land a remote job and live a more flexible life. I have been working remotely since 2014, so it's going to be 10 years next year. Excited to be here in this panel today.
Thank you, Juliana. Charlotte.
Hello, I'm Charlotte. I'm a People Lifecycle Manager at Plum. Plum is a mental health platform that provides video sessions to individuals remotely, virtually. So wherever you are in the world, you can access therapy at your fingertips. I myself have been in the remote working space for the past 5 to 6 years now, and went from being a mentee to now being a mentor and managing my team as well as Plum in the remote space. It's lovely to be here and I'm really excited for today's talk.
Fantastic, Charlotte. Lovely link in there with therapy and supporting people on that extra level. Love that. Welcome, welcome. Danny.
Hello, everyone. I'm Danny, greeting from Cyprus. I'm the founder of Spatial Chat. So Spatial Chat is an immersive video communication tool that designed for remote teams to host informal meetings, synchronous brainstorming session, or online classes. Also, apart from doing product for remote teams, we are a remote team ourselves. So I can share my experience of managing the team of 20 plus people remotely. As well, I will share insight what we learned from over thousands of remote teams that we provide our services to.
Fantastic. And Danny's going to very much bring the startup angle, Danny, looking through the notes. So that's really, really good. We've got such a fantastic mix today on the panel. So I'm really delighted about that. Sasha.
Hi, I'm Sasha Connor. I'm the CEO of Virtual Work Insider. And for the past 5 years, my company has been teaching the skills to lead and communicate and collaborate and build culture when working across distance. And my remote work story started way back in 2010 when I became a remote work experiment for the Clorox company, which is a $7 billion company that's headquartered in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then I spent 8 years leading large distributed sales, marketing, and new product innovation teams while I worked fully remotely.
As I said, this is a really top class panel. And also, I'm a bit biased because I've been on stage with both Juliana and Sasha at international conferences. So I know that they are not only real experts, they're also fantastic keynote and presenters. So that also is lovely to have them on the virtual stage with us today. So wonderful, wonderful. So we might move on, Kurt, off this screen so we can have everyone on full video if you're there, please. And I wanted to start with sort of a more just landing question, just to all get us into the whole topic of mentorship. And also to tap in a little bit emotionally into that, because I think with our wealth of experience, I hope that we've all benefited extensively from the experience of either being mentored or being mentors or menteeing. So what I was hoping was tune in for a second into your experience, either as a mentee or mentor. And can you, and I'm going to start with Charlotte, then go to Sasha, then go to Danny, then Juliana. Tell me a little story or explain quite personally what mentorship means to you. Okay, so Charlotte, starting with you.
Yeah, sure. So for me, starting off in being a mentee and working in the remote space, the mentorship I received wasn't always the greatest. And the support I received while working remotely wasn't always the greatest. And for me, that meant I wanted to be that different, and I wanted to be able to be a mentor to my team, to other individuals, and show them that working in a remote space, it's possible. Being able to thrive and to grow in a remote working space is something that is possible, right? I mean, a lot of people, when COVID hit, that's when a lot of companies only went into the remote working space and they didn't feel it was possible. So for me, what mentorship means in the remote working space is being able to be there for my team, being able to support my team, and just show them that they have the capability and the option to grow and develop. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. So Charlotte's inspiration there is also something we can all learn from. So maybe not having the support she needed in the past has really helped her to find that energy and definition. I really love that, Charlotte, because in life, sometimes when we've had a bad experience, it can either put us off or motivate us, can't it? So it's lovely to hear that from you. And it's really also credit to you that you've decided to really try and make that difference in the way you approach mentorship. Sasha.
So I have benefited from mentorship throughout my career, especially as I started as a pretty junior person at this large enterprise, the Clorox company. I needed mentorship to think about how to reach my goals from a career perspective within marketing and business leadership. But a real turning point for me was when I went remote back in 2010, and I didn't know how I was going to lead my teams and build team culture and stay visible to my key stakeholders from 3,000 miles and 3 time zones away. And so I had to find other peers who were pockets of remote workers in other parts of the company, and then people external to mentor me so that I could actually mentor others within the company as they went remote over time, because it was so early on in learning how to work remotely that we needed to build that muscle and skill internally as well.
Beautiful. And to pick that a little bit apart, Sasha, and maybe explain it in another way for people, you saw that what you were trying to do was quite challenging, and you leaned into mentorship to look for the support from those people that were your peers that you could help you. So you almost gathered these allies, this cheering squad to help you. And then again, we have that ripple effect. They support you and everyone benefits. So I really like that as well. So it's another way of looking at the benefit of mentorship. Fantastic. Danny, what would you add to that? What's the story you would tell about mentorship and why it matters to you?
Yeah, when it comes to mentorship, I try to look at from two different lenses. So the first one is from the individual perspective, and the second one is from the team or group perspective. Individual perspective, I think it's more related to your career development, to your skills development, to your development as a professional in the industry, while the impact of the mentorship in a team, I think it's more related to aligning your team member and making sure that everyone is on the same page. And I also think maybe we should distinguish when it comes to the team mentorship on a scale of the company, right? Some big organizations, they have a well-defined process of onboarding junior people, of moving them to middle to senior professionals, while, for example, startups, they try to pick up more experienced professionals. But nevertheless, what we have experience of on our case specifically, we found out that even the team of experienced professionals requires some mentorship, and we need to help each other to find the area, because also in startups, quite a lot of people are generalists, right? They're good in several things, or you have to do a lot of things. And what we find out that we can help to mentor ourselves in a team. So each of us is great in a specific zones, and we try to articulate to help every member, to help the leadership team on what we can be better at. And then we can, in this setup, we can embed some external professionals, for example, some board members or like people who can help to nail the skills. But I think at the end, mentorship, it's all about aligning, making everyone is on the same page, and articulating clearly and candidly on what you should improve in order to achieve this goal. Yeah, so that's what my perspective.
Fantastic. And you've covered so much there, Danny. So let's just summarize that a little bit for the audience. Yeah. You've got very clear point on individual versus team or group mentorship, but you've also, to summarize, and you said a lot and it was really good, but to summarize, it's almost like you have to define what mentorship means for your team. And to the different examples we've already heard, to Clorox, to etc., these bigger organizations that might have mentorship models, coming up with some sort of definition that to how mentorship is going to work for your startup, your bigger organization, whatever size of team, and what the goals and how it might work. It's something, again, as a leader, you may want to spend some time analyzing, discussing, writing down with your colleagues, okay, with your teammates. So you've got a definition, you've got a plan. Fantastic, Danny, really, really useful. Juliana, what would you add to the conversation?
I was reflecting, like when I started working remotely, I didn't have a proper mentorship support at that point, right? There were some internal changes in the company, so I started working remotely. Part of my team was not remote, so I didn't have a proper mentorship set up. And now looking back, I missed that to start. So I can totally resonate with people who start working remotely for the first time. They don't have the proper support, the proper mentors, processes and guidance and all of that. So I also see that with the professionals that I help to land a remote job, and then some of them come back to me some months later and they say, I'm feeling lost. I don't know what to do. Like I have technical knowledge, but I don't know how to fit in the team. I feel lost. I don't know who to, ask for support and guidance. So that's extremely important. I experienced that on my own skin, and I know how important it is. Even if you are a very qualified professional, but if you don't have guidance, if you don't have mentors, if you don't know how to navigate the work environment, the teams, then the performance is going to be low and the whole team is going to suffer. So it's extremely important to talk about mentorship and to have processes for that since day one that you joined the company.
So true. And you can't sometimes, Juliana, even articulate the challenge you're experiencing all of you may have been in this situation in your professional career, because you don't have a peer or a mentor to even bounce it off and get some guidance on what actually the problem statement might be, or the challenge statement, to put it in a different way. So that's so, so true. Fantastic. So we've really sort of broken the ice there. What I'd like to do is I'd like to look back to it being Remote Mentorship 101, our title for a minute for the session, and also think about the word potential. Okay, because we've got potential in there. How do we raise things up in a mentorship model to help people reach their potential? So some of you may have heard me say this before, but trust is the glue, as we all know, of good remote working. Okay, so let's put our trust hats on for a moment, okay? And I'm going to go around the room again. I'm going to start with Charlotte, going to go to Juliana, then Sasha, and then Danny. Trust in a mentorship arrangement. So Charlotte, if you kick off. And remember, our audience are also looking for any advice or any tips here. So is there anything that you can recall in either how you operate now or how you've experienced in the past that's fostered trust in that mentorship relationship?
Yeah, sure. So for me, what's been really important in my working space at the moment, in building trust not only with my team, but also building trust with my manager, is that autonomy, right? That autonomy to be able to do things, to be able to get the tasks done, and trust that, I say trust, I wish I had a different word to use for trust, but believe, that's the word. Believe that those that you have delegated a task to, or those that you have communicated a task to, that they are able to continuously look at it and do it, right? I think something for me that's really important is not having that micromanagement, right? Because then that trust is gone. There is no trust in that relationship, whether it's between you and your manager or you and your team members. So for me, something that I really focus on is giving my team members the autonomy, whether it be that they come back and the task is incorrect, that's okay, right? We learn from it, we fail from it, and we grow from that. So I think one of the most important things for me is giving them that autonomy. Another really important part for me is clear and consistent communication. And that's going to build the trust because they're going to understand what is expected of them. And I think it's important for me and my team to have that clear, concise communication so that they understand what I require from them as with the project, and then it can be delivered. If it's broken communication, if it's inconsistent, if it comes in drips and drabs, it's going to cause confusion. And then I think just demonstrating it from my side as well, right? Showing them that I trust them in order for them to also be able to feel that trust. And how that's done is just showing them and encouraging them to have the conversations with me. If they are unsure of something, I've always been told this from my managers as well, there's no silly question. If you're unsure of something, rather ask it, because instead of going back and not knowing or not understanding what is required. So I think having that transparency and have that space where they can come to you and feel that they can be open with you about they weren't able to meet a deadline or they weren't able to achieve a task that was set out for them. And then the last thing I would add to that in building trust is rapport. So something that's really important in the therapy side of things, and I myself am a counselor by profession as well, but it's something that I think to me comes naturally, but I'll speak to it in terms of how I try and encourage rapport, is having informal conversations with my team members, because that builds that relationship. So it's not just work related, it's not just work focused, but in building that rapport and giving them a space where they can share on a personal level allows them to feel that they can also trust you. So that's just been my experience with my team members at the moment.
That's so much there. Autonomy, rapport, fantastic, fantastic. So I will go around the room. Wonderful answer, Charlotte, so extensive. So let's go to Sasha, then we'll go to Juliana, and then go to Danny. I don't know if I had that right sequence. Sasha, is there anything you would add to what Charlotte said or highlight?
So when I think about trust, I like to reference Brene Brown. So Brene Brown has this great acronym that she uses around trust called BRAVING, BRAVING, BRAVING. to represent the components of trust. So if you're not familiar with it, you can Google Brene Brown and Braving and learn more about it. But the key components to it, a lot of it is building on what Charlotte was saying. So B for boundaries, R for reliability, A for accountability, V for vault, so being able to keep confidential information confidential, I for integrity, N for non-judgment, and G for generosity. And so as you're thinking about your team, I suggest that you look at those components and decide where your team is already strong and where you might have to work on some of those aspects of trust. So for example, if boundaries is an issue, the B in Braving, then make sure that your team is actually codifying your boundaries. So things like your availability and responsiveness expectations. So for example, when I work with teams, especially cross-functional teams, a lot of them haven't even taken the time yet to know what time zones they each work in and develop their expectations for when there's going to be some core collaboration hours across time zones and what times are off limits and how fast a response is expected in different types of communication. So, we work a lot with teams to create these team working agreements that capture those kinds of boundaries and those norms because they are a component of trust.
Fantastic. And Sasha, I'm a huge advocate for those team charters and agreements. I did a 2-hour workshop on it with a client this morning. And it's one of the things that, just so people listening understand, and I can share a couple of links, or Sasha, contact Sasha if you want more information on them, no problem. But it's almost organizing that beautiful framework you gave from Brene, Sasha, into something that outlines the norms and the agreements. It's the points to what Charlotte made as well. It's organizing what are our team norms in terms of availability, expectations of communication channels, etc., etc. So wonderful, wonderful advice there from Sasha and Charlotte so far. Juliana and then Danny. Juliana, would you add anything different or anything that extends the conversation? Because trust is that thing that's it's almost hard, isn't it, to give a recipe for trust?
Yeah, but if trust is not there, then the work won't happen, the team won't get together, performance won't be there. So it's extremely important. I would add expectation, like clarify expectation from you, what is expected from you, with your clients, with your team, with your work. So once you understand that, you know what to do, you can organize yourself, and it doesn't mean you're going to settle for the basic things. It's not about a basic performance or I'm going to do just what I was told to do, but it's like I understand what is expected from me, and then I can organize myself. I don't need micromanagement and all of that, so I can perform well because I know the expectation and I can adjust to it. So I think it's important for trust, clarify the expectations, and then celebrate the small victories, right? Because trust also is built when we celebrate together, when we have fun together, when we can share a smile and one quick message saying, well done, very proud of you. This doesn't take much time. It's normally for free, the ways you can celebrate victories, but it brings this feeling of we are together on it, we are part of a team, so the trust is also built and consolidated when we celebrate small victories. It makes us feel more connected. So clarify expectations and celebrate the small victories on the way.
Fantastic, fantastic, Juliana. And I love that second one. And I do believe it is related to trust and psychological safety, where we celebrate the small things, where we acknowledge people's work, where we thank them. And for the audience joining in, because people think, how do you do that often in the remote environment? Well, I've just given you a quick example of something that I just do with my team. It's the wrong way around, but I often write thank you and draw a little love heart, take a photo and send it on my Slack channel to my team. Or I record in my dulcet Irish tones a little audio message they can listen to, because we're all on different time zones. So simple things that just have that little bit more of effort can be a really good way. And building trust is also acknowledging the work done, because it's going to kind of feel funny if you're not saying before you move on to something, thank you for what we have achieved. Okay, so I think that's very, very related. So thank you, Juliana. Over to you, Danny. Anything to add from the startup space?
I would probably continue my previous thesis, and I would say that the backbone of building the trust is basically alignment. So you need to cultivate that everyone is on the same page, because other than that, there will be mismatch, right? And I think that's, yeah, I would agree with Sasha, Charlotte, Juliana, that communication is vital. The way we communicate, the way we set an expectation. I would also add that I would also emphasize the importance of informal gathering here. That sometimes it's just okay, to have unstructured conversation, to have a very fun gathering, to talk about your favorite movies, to talk about your dog, to talk about your family. It's just a bonding thing, right? So if I can work with an exceptional professional, but if I don't know them quite well, maybe I wouldn't be able to trust them 100%, right? So that's what we find out in our company. So yeah, I think that's alignment plus unstructured conversation. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what builds trust.
Brilliant. And can I check with all of you, because Danny, we've mentioned rapport quite a bit, and I also wanted to cover the elephant that might be in the room. I don't want to make any assumptions, but the elephant that might be in the room is one that I often find on these sessions, where people think we're building all of these things, rapport, trust, alignment, team charters, only virtually. But I bet a lot of you meet up in person as well with either your clients, your teams. Nodding happening. Okay, so good. So one of the ways, to Danny's last point, and it's been weaved through all our conversations, is don't see mentorship just as a virtual activity. Don't see leadership just as a virtual activity. We want to also highlight the benefits of meeting in person, which many remote teams do, or they meet in pockets, small groups, or they have co-working days, or whatever it may be. But that can be really, really important part in this strategy of mentorship, in this strategy of leadership, of building that rapport, because people do often connect at a different level when they're together. So I thought it would be nice to wrap up that piece on trust, right? Charlotte, you're a trained counselor, and I'm sure that when it comes to the topic of trust and psychological safety, you probably know we can build it virtually, but it can often be really accentuated in person, or can really be bolstered in person. So let's look at the tangible benefits. So we've gone through lots of different things here in terms of understanding what mentorship is, how it might fit into leadership. We've talked about things like performance. We've talked about things like onboarding new. We've touched on some of these things. But for some of the tangible benefits, so think very much of leadership or operational benefits, so to speak. Can you give me any stories, or give me any indications from your experience where you can see a real solid tangible benefit to having a mentorship program, having a mentorship relationships happening in your teams? So I'm going to go to Charlotte, then to Danny, then to Sasha, then to Juliana. So Danny, back to you on this one. Anything in terms of a really clear, tangible benefit for mentorship?
For me or for Charlotte?
Sorry, Danny, if you could go first on a tangible.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, I think every activity that's related to improving the communications, improving how we work, can be proxied through some set of metric related to productivity, so the way we achieve our goals, right? So I actually don't have an answer on some short-term metrics, for example, right? How can I estimate the effectiveness of the single mentorship session, right? Of course, we can do some NPS survey, some satisfaction form, but is it a good indicator of the influence of the tangible metrics for our team? I don't know, but I think we need to be in this case. I would probably articulate the importance of something non-measurable, and in a way, it's some gut feelings that how you feel confident, right, about working with your teammates, how you feel confident about the company, about the product you build, right? So maybe that kind of questions that you need to answer, because actually the main goal of Mentor is to reduce the level of unstructuredness, right? Yeah, and so if that helps to achieve this goal, so that's, I think that we're in the right track.
I think you've touched on a really important point, and Sasha, Charlotte, and Juliana, I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing here too, that because obviously as leaders, we're going to maybe be asked to justify mentorship programs or come up with, that's what I was hoping to pull out of this a little bit, Danny, as well. It's not all tangible measurement and KPIs. There's going to be a soft spot.
ROI.
Exactly. And I know there is, you can Google it if you want, there are some HBR articles on mentorship programs that do help with retention, they help decrease attrition, they can help all those things that you would expect. But thank you for your honest answer, Danny, because I think that's a real reflection of when we're maybe pitching in a mentorship approach within our organizations, that we need to be aware that not everything is measurable in terms of mentorship. So I'm going to go to you, Charlotte, then to Juliana and Sasha. Charlotte, would you add anything to that in terms of, in your position, maybe you've got examples of how you know mentorship works, but how would you articulate the tangible benefits? How would you make the business argument for it if needed?
Yeah, I think like Danny rightly said, it's really different. It's really difficult to measure and put on paper and say these are the benefits, bam, 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 right? I think for me, what we do see is, and it's one of, maybe in my space, one of the clear-cut things is the retention of staff, right? So people really enjoying that they have that flexibility, that they have that space where they can juggle life, right? We often have these conversations, life is really busy, but being able to be in a remote working space, being able to have that flexibility and move from space to space, quickly hop to the store or quickly go here, but not feel like it's impacting your day-to-day workspace. How do you show that? How do you present that and be like, well, this is why we should be doing remote mentorship? But I think what we've noticed and what we've seen within our space, and something that's really great, is the increase in productivity, the willingness to contribute, the constant dedication to our tasks, to the organization as a whole. I think even if and it's a little bit slightly off topic, but even if we just look at therapy in the space of, therapy was never seen as something that you could do in a remote working or in a virtual environment. For example, if you had to tell me when I was studying that therapy would be done on a virtual space, I would tell you, you're joking. And if we just look at how great that has been and how we've been able to foster a space not only for our internal workforce, but also for our therapists, and mentoring them so that they can become accustomed to the remote working space, how they can actively be there for their clients and provide for their clients. So yeah, I can't add too much in terms of how we would tangibly measure it. I think it's on a case-to-case basis how we're doing it at the moment.
Okay, fantastic and very, very comprehensive. And it is really interesting to nod to that therapy piece and think about it. So perfect, Charlotte. Thank you for that, because I actually remember during the pandemic, I'm a big fan of Esther Perel, and she said the same thing, Charlotte. She said when she was qualifying as a therapist, she never thought so much virtual therapy would happen, and that she felt in some cases, not all, that people were more open in a virtual environment, and sometimes more progress can be made therapeutically, which you could maybe argue the same for in terms of quality of our relationships. So I think there's a really interesting alignment there. Sasha and then Juliana. Sasha, anything in terms of, I know you've got goals as well, or an angle on measurement there, but what about tangible benefits of mentorship?
I'm going to take the question in a slightly different direction, because when I work with teams, I work with a lot of teams that are in a hybrid situation where we have a lot of people that are co-located and then other people that are in other office sites or working fully remotely or coming in and out of the office. And I think that we need to be talking about a mindset shift from thinking that mentoring can only be done in person to knowing that mentorship can and should be done anytime from any place. And as I mentioned earlier in my intro, I went remote back in 2010 as a senior business leader at Clorox. And when I first went remote, a decision was made to not assign me a summer intern, since the assumption was made that an intern could only have a great experience if their manager or their mentor was co-located with them in the same office building. And so over time, I was able to influence a change to that mindset and to that policy. And one of my interns that I eventually worked with explained to me that it was an incredible real-world experience to learn how to work across distance with me and other team members. And the benefit was that it showed to her that the company was open to flexible work options, which became a unique selling point in the consumer product goods industry. So ultimately, it had a positive factor in her decision to accept the full-time offer at the company.
So there's a really, really good life example. Brilliant, Sasha. And that's so, so true, because there is still a bit like people think remote work is only work from home. There's still so many misunderstandings about what can happen because we're still in such flux. Fantastic session, fantastic. And I really think that's food for thought for everyone. Juliana, on measurement of mentorship or even on creating the business case, have you got anything to add there?
Yeah, I'm going to bring my background in recruitment and thinking about tangible aspects, money. Okay, we need to talk about money. When people are receive mentoring in the job, the chances that they are more committed to what they are doing, to their projects, to their clients, to their team, the chance that they are feeling really part of it increase. So it direct affects the retention of them, because hiring someone new and training that person, then bringing that person to optimal performance will take a while, will take months, and will cost money. So when you have the person there already, it's cheaper and it's easier to mentor this person instead of just, let's hire someone else or let's just ignore the person. So there is this thing about increasing the employee retention, making the person feel part of something bigger, and then you save time and you save money in the process. So definitely you can measure that with money and the commitment that employees have when they receive mentorship, when they feel that they belong, that they feel respected, they feel that the company value their work and their presence there.
Fantastic. So we've got the recruiter angle there as well. So some wonderful questions. And I've actually got a question coming in. So it's a good pause point because we've discussed some fantastic stories, some fantastic insights. So it's a good pause point here. And actually there's a question that's come in. So anyone listening that does have a question, make sure you pop it in to the Q&A. But the question that's come in is very related to our recent discussion. So I'll pitch it to the panel now. What if you have experience with working remote, but your leader doesn't? How can you mentor up, so to speak? I love that, okay? Because we say in leadership or management, we talk about managing up, or we talk about how we can basically influence the layer above us if need be, right? And all of us will have, I'm sure I don't, but all of us will have our experience having layers above. So Sasha, you touched on this a little bit when you gave your story, but I'm going to open it up to the panel to answer that question. So this is the person who's working remotely, but their leader isn't and doesn't, obviously needs to learn a little bit themselves about all of this, about virtual mentorship, about how it can happen. So what would be your recommendation to that person? So the question is, how can they either manage up, or how can they influence their direct leader to understand the potential of mentorship? Any suggestions?
It's a really good question. Also, I think a really tough question in terms of how to manage it. So I'll just share how I would do that if I were in that situation. And I think what's really important is to highlight your experience. And I think because obviously we've said it in the beginning, if you haven't been in that situation and you don't know how to mentor in a in a remote working environment, it can be really challenging for you. So what I would do, or how I would approach it with my manager and manager, is I would speak about my experience and give examples, give situations, how we would manage certain things, what kind of policies are in place, what kind of support I need, how we would deal with challenges that come up. So that's how I would generally start the conversation, to kind of get it going and get it flowing forward, and see what then the manager brings from there. So I think it's obviously you need to understand from the manager's perspective and have that active listening where you're able to understand what challenges they're experiencing, or why they're not necessarily an advocate for it if they aren't an advocate for it. But I would take that conversation leading with what experience I have and how I've dealt with this previously, and how we can potentially incorporate that within our relationship or within our team.
Absolutely beautiful, Charlotte. The only thing I would add to that, and it's weaved to in there, but I'm just going to pull it out, that you're very clear on the benefits. When we're selling an idea or an approach to someone in any types of our language, I'm bringing in my communications background here, that we're very much saying, and I benefit from that because, and then the result of that was I experienced X, and then the team had this positive impact Y. So really good, Charlie. I think that's a really, really good answer. Does anyone else want to add to that? Give a different angle? If not, we have a couple of other questions come in, and I'm going to head to those in a second before we go back to our format as well. So anyone want to add to that? No? Okay. I am going to pull up there's a couple of more questions coming in, so I'm going to read out the next one. All right. So as a corollary or an extension of the mentoring up question, I'm on the job market right now, and I'm selectively considering remote and remote hybrid positions. What are the top 3 things I should be looking for, asking about, to ensure that the organizational culture is incorporating some best practices in this area? Ooh, that's nice, because here we are today as remote leaders and representing different organizations, and we also have to remember there's individuals out there, Juliana's dealing with them lots, who are trying to find remote jobs, who are also very selective at the moment. It is very much a market and a growing market where people are trying to choose the right employer, right organization to join with. So I'm going to open it up to the panel. What question do you think is a good question to ask at interview? Juliana, I know you could probably answer this easily, but I'm going to go to Sasha. What question would you be thinking of asking that would perhaps reflect, because you're very much in the space of culture, Sasha, and teaching on culture, that an interviewee can maybe feel around that area with the potential employer?
Yes, with many companies these days, these are new skills on how to lead and communicate and build culture and collaborate when we're not all working together. Because probably many of these companies that people are applying to are, distributed across different office sites, might have just started a hybrid work schedule, but they probably were not started fully remote. They don't have that kind of fully remote DNA on how to work together. So if you are going to ask some questions of a hiring manager, I would ask some questions around what are the training programs that they have put into place to help build the skills and the mindsets and the behaviors to help enable these teams to be working across distance, whether that's in geographically distributed teams or hybrid teams. Because often when we come to work with companies, what we've heard is that no training has been put into place, or it's been very self-service. So perhaps some PDFs or some on-demand videos that you can watch, but there actually hasn't been a holistic view on how to build these skills over time.
Oh, fantastic. So exploring that, what training have you had? Is there any programs in place? Really, really good advice, Sasha. I'm going to ask Juliana, and then Danny or Charlotte, if you want to jump in on this one, feel ready. Juliana, any addition or anything different to what Sasha has shared?
Yeah, I would say you can ask clearly when you want to join a company, when you're interviewing with the hiring manager, for example. So what is expected from you the next 60 days, 90 days, 30 days even, right? So what is expected from you? And then when you get that feedback aligned with what Sasha said, like, what is the support that I'm going to receive to get there? Am I expected to bring it all to the table already? Am I going to be trained about something? Can I shadow someone to learn how to do it? So again, back to expectation, short term and more long term, so you understand it also that fits with your expectation. Because a mistake that I see very commonly with job seekers is that they try to understand the company's culture. If I want a startup environment, or if I want a more like a bigger company that has all the process settled down and all of that, but they don't think about what they want, what moment of their career they are, which kind of environment, which kind of leadership, which kind of autonomy level they want, which kind of product they want to work with. So it's important that you understand what the company has to offer, but that you know what you need at the moment. I need more guidance. I'm more junior. So I would love to have someone almost like taking me by the hand and no, I know what I'm doing. I like autonomy. So don't bother me. Let me do my thing. I'm going to ask for help. So understand what is expected from you and then which kind of support you're going to have. And also another question to see how open the company is for suggestions and for change is asking like, what was the last time an employee suggestion was accepted and implemented here?
Ooh,
right?
nice one.
Yeah, if the manager cannot think about an example, so probably they have a very settled structure, and whatever you bring to the table is like, no, that's not how we do things here, which might work for some people, right? They might say, I don't want to overcomplicate my life, I just want to follow process. But if you like to contribute and to change the environment, then this might be a relevant question to you. So yeah, those two suggestions.
Fantastic suggestions, Juliana. Really, really, really good. And it reminds me of another question I heard recommended, which is similar to your question that you might ask in an interview about what has been implemented. Tell me a story about what an employee has, how has that been supported, is tell me a story of your culture in action and see what a company might answer as well. I've done that myself a couple of times and been very disappointed by the answer. So I don't know if we've got any leaders joining that are trying to hire. Yeah, and if you have to dig deep on that one, you really need to be contacting Sasha or myself, because there should be something that you should be able to definitely come up with pretty quickly on that. Danny or Charlotte, anything to extend that? Now we have a couple of other questions, so if you don't have anything to add to that, I'll pass on to these last questions because I want to make sure to get them in our last sort of 5-8 minutes. Danny, anything? Charlotte, you're saying no.
Move a little bit. Sorry, I'm in an open space. It started raining, so that's real life. I'm just gonna move from a place with a shower.
Yeah.
Okay, rain on the tropical island. You poor thing, Juliana. You poor thing.
It's raining my computer, so I'm just gonna move here. Sorry.
We're all playing our little violins for Juliana because we're so sad for her. Danny, had you anything to add?
Yeah, I think I will breach Juliana's idea a bit. I think one of the I suggest to figure out the level of transparency inside the company, because I think that's one of the most important things in the remote environment. Whether everyone in a team understands how's the company, what's the health of the company, what's the health of the product, what is the metric, are we in the right direction or not, right? So, and the leadership team should be very transparent and in explaining what we're doing, on what's the metrics or what's the experiments running and so on. Some companies, I think notably GitLab, right? They building an open source tool, but they created this very great transparent culture external, right? So everyone is familiar with their guidebooks, with their multiple videos. I think not every remote team is capable of doing that, but I think transparency and figure out the level of transparency is really vital before considering joining the remote team.
Wonderful. And Danny, you have actually hinted into something I was going to mention. So you mentioned GitLab. We've got Atlassian as well. Joyce, many remote, I mean, some of them have been on these webinars, representatives. So you can Google the GitLab handbook. You can look at Atlassian's online training. There's other training out there. But I would recommend that person who's asked that question and anyone who's tuning in looking for the right remote position, do a little bit of groundwork on the best practice in the remote space. Read Sasha's newsletter, look at these different, all of us have probably got newsletters, information online, but look to some of the real trailblazer, Automatic, GitLab, Atlassian. Maybe do a short little video course because some of them are free or cheap. So to that point, Danny, that you're asking the right type of questions to understand their culture. What do you have documented? What is your processes and procedures? What are your metrics in the remote work environment, etc.? Or as in the interview, as Juliana says, if they start to give you information that you can maybe notice when you see some gaps. So for example, Juliana, your question of what do you expect me to do in the first 80, 90 days? What would I deliver? If you're a little bit versed on good remote practices, how someone answers that, you're maybe going to pick up on some warning signs, okay? You're maybe going to pick up on some warning signs, you're likely to. So Danny, that was really good, and it brought in that piece as well about looking for documentation, looking for those reference points that show good remote work practice. See, the other question that came in that I really think is interesting as well, and this will be the last one. So I know we haven't quite stick to the plan, but there's been some good questions. I got 3 really good questions. Ask questions to the I'm going to invite the lovely audience to pop them in now. But I thought this was a really good one as well. So this question from the audience is, as a remote mentee, how can I advocate for better mentorship when people are often unavailable or forget about one-on-one meeting times with me? So that is really, really frustrating, potentially, to be in that person's position. So what I am wondering, and we kind of answered it a little bit, didn't we, with the managing up with the leader? We kind of touched on the same piece. So when Charlotte answered, I believe there's an overlap here, Charlotte, as well, that mentee could really try and communicate the benefit of mentorship for them and try and advocate for themselves back into the team, into the leaders, say, please, I really need you to do this. But is there anything else anyone would add, right? Go on, Charlotte.
I'll just thing that Sasha also mentioned earlier, and it's a key thing, which is boundaries, right? So if they're not attending the meeting on time, they're late for meetings, it's setting those boundaries, right? Because everyone's time is valuable, and everyone's time, you know, it's important that we're not wasting other people's times, especially when it comes to a meeting you prepare, especially if it's a meeting you're preparing for, right? They've prepared for that meeting, you're late, they have a meeting thereafter. So I think setting clear boundaries and having clear communication and conversation surrounding this matter. So having a conversation with them saying, I cannot move forward if you forget to reply to me. I cannot action these items if you forget to respond to me. Obviously, you do it in a respectful way. You obviously address the matter sensitively, but I think for me the main things would be setting boundaries as well as having clear conversations surrounding the matter.
Fantastic. Sasha?
Yeah, I agree. So let's assume that there's been an agreement between this mentor and this mentee, and we have to remember that in a lot of mentorship relationships, there's a power dynamic there, because often a mentee is working with somebody who's more senior to them, and it's hard enough to, you know, ask for help and reach out to people who are your peer or your manager, but like imagine that with somebody who's even more senior to you and it's across distance. So it's really important to get to an agreement on what those communication norms are going to be, what frequency, what are our rituals, how often will we meet, who is responsible for putting that meeting on the calendar, and maybe suggesting to that mentor that they're putting reminders on their calendar to proactively reach out to the mentee. So these conversations need to happen at that upfront decision when you get into a mentorship agreement. And as a mentee, you can actually be at cause by actually bringing these topics to the beginning of the conversation with that mentor that you're going into a relationship with.
Perfect. And Sasha, I can't help but mention it all links into the team charter as well, because we may have a mentorship section in there where we reflect some of the norms at a team level. So it all comes back to that structure and documentation. Okay, thank you so much. We're finishing up. We answered all the questions that came in. Hooray for us. Sasha, Danny, Charlotte, Juliana, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an utter pleasure. You can scan the QR code there if you want to find out more about SafetyWing and their products. Thank you for joining in. I'll see you at the next webinar. Have a lovely rest of the week wherever you're joining us from, and take care. Cheers.
Ciao.
Bye.